Hey guys, my name is Ryan Walker, and I'm here to give our presentation on the CISP Team Challenge, kind of building our resilient cybersecurity operations. So myself and alongside Andrew Roll, we worked together to design a disaster recovery plan or DRP and help develop supporting security policies that um, kind of help ensure a proper implementation of the DRP. This project challenges us to apply real world cybersecurity principles alongside while ensuring that our plan aligned with current CISP standards. So, kind of getting into it, into our introduction, really the purpose of the project was to build a comprehensive disaster recovery plan and a set of security policies that organizations can use to strengthen their resilience. Um, a DRP helps minimize downtime when disasters or disruptions occur, while security policies establish rules and expectations to protect those systems and their data. This project was pretty collaborative. We divided the responsibilities amongst the two of us and kind of discussed some of our ideas um, and consolidated our work into this final presentation. Our thesis is pretty straightforward. Um, an integrated disaster recovery plan, and strong security policies protect organizations by addressing risks, enabling recovery, and ensuring alignment with CISP framework. It's kind of rolling right into it. We get into our risk assessment. Um, so every DRP, plan kind of begins with a risk assessment. Our project, we kind of identified some key threats, such as like cyber attacks or, going alongside things like ransomware, or other aspects like natural disasters, whereas like floods or power outages, or even just hardware failures, can kind of cause some disruptions. We assess these risks, kind of based on the probability and the impact. This gives us a risk matrix that allows us to prioritize, the most serious threats first. Kind of, for example, a ransomware attack, may be, highly probable and have, a really severe impact, while things like natural disasters or tornadoes or floods maybe a lower probability depending on where you are geographically located. So really having that risk matrix kind of helps you figure out what is more reasonable to happen to your systems. This process directly relates to our CISP security and risk management domain, which emphasizes identifying and managing risks proactively. So once the risks are identified, we have recovery strategies must then be defined. We focused on three areas, our data backups, alternate sites, and recovery metrics. For our backups, we recommend using, a hybrid approach that includes on-site backups for quick recovery and cloud backups for redundancy. For alternate sites, organizations can use, kind of one of three. We use a hot site that is, always ready, uh, a warm site that requires, some basic setup, or you could have a cold site, that may take longer, to get up and running, but is a lot more cost effective. And finally, we considered, our recovery time objectives, which define how quickly the systems must be restored, and then our recovery point objectives, which define how much data loss is acceptable. Together, these kind of give us an outline, for how these strategies ensure that downtime and the damages are really minimized. Moving into our incident response within the DRP, we really base this off of the NIST guidelines, which outline four main phases: detection, containment, eradication, and recovery. First, an organization must detect a problem quickly, whether it's a cyber attack or if it's just a system failure. Next, then it must contain the issue to prevent any further damage from happening. Um, After the containment, then you kind of get the root cause. When you find that, that must be eradicated, such as like removing the malware or fixing a certain vulnerability within the system. And then finally, systems are recovered and they're restored back to their normal operations. So throughout the process, having proper documentation and really having clear and concise communication are really what's critical, so that the lessons can be learned and the improvements can be made in a really timely manner. So integration with the business continuity plan, so the DRP can't just really be there by itself. It must integrate with an organization's continuity plan or the BCP. Um, this ensures that mission critical functions like your finance division or your human resources and your customer support can continue working effectively during an active crisis. So, the DRP specifically focuses on restoring the IT systems and the data. But by combining the two, organizations can achieve proper resilience, meaning that they can continue delivering essential services, while simultaneously kind of restoring the technology that they were having issues with. So, kind of moving into some of our security policies, kind of the first one that we moved to is really our configuration management. We created some security policies to kind of reinforce our protection. The first policy area, like I said, that we start with is our configuration. So we emphasize creating a secure baseline for all the systems, regularly applying patches and updates, and then implementing, pretty strong change management controls. This ensures that, the systems are consistently secure and it reduces our chance of vulnerabilities being introduced. So our second one for our security policy is our access control. Access should follow the principles of, least privilege. Like for example, users only really having the access that they need to do their job really, and nothing really more than that. So we kind of recommend using a role-based access control, which organizes permissions by like their job function. For example, if you work in human resources, really only having access to certain file paths and privileges within that domain. In addition, we stress like the importance of using like MFA or multi-factor authentication, which requires users to verify their identity in more than one way. Like signing in with a passkey through your phone alongside a password on your computer. So, using these together, they help strengthen, the identity and access management, which really is a core CISP domain. And our third that we move alongside is kind of our incident reporting. You know, employees really must know how to recognize like suspicious activity and understand and know the correct way to report it immediately. So we created a structured reporting process that really like includes detection, the escalation through their clear chain of command, and the proper documentation of the incident. You know, your first line is really training your employees. That's really essential so that like the reporting becomes second nature to them. And the faster that the incident gets reported, the faster that it can be contained and hopefully resolved very quickly. So kind of how we use the CISP alignment and some of the lessons that we learn during this. Um, our work really closely aligns with the CISP domains. That's what our overarching structure was. These include things like our security and risk management, identity and access management, the business continuity and the disaster recovery, alongside operations security. Beyond the technical content, you know, we we as our team kind of gained some pretty valuable lessons from this project. We learned how to divide some of the tasks between us, and kind of collaborate from those tasks and consolidate the contributions that each of us made into one kind of cohesive plan. But most importantly, we really just experience firsthand how these principles translate from just a theory of operation through the classroom into more of like a practical application of what you would see in real life scenario in a new career field. Kind of in conclusion, for our project, it just kind of demonstrates that an integrated DRP and strong security policies can significantly improve organizational resilience, by assessing risks and implementing recovery strategies and aligning with the business continuity plans. Organizations can prepare for and recover from disruptions pretty effectively. Security policies provide the structure to maintain operational security, and it guides employees' behavior. Together, these deliverables align with the CISP principles, and they really create a strong foundation for resilient cybersecurity operations. So, all right, thank you for your time. That's all we have for the presentation. Hope you enjoyed.